But this one's about FTX. So I don't want to bore you with the details. I'm sure people have heard ad nauseum what's happened there. Essentially, FTX has collapsed. I just got some of the, I want to call it the fun stuff. I think if we can't laugh at stuff like this, I don't know what we can laugh at. But here's some of the fallout and some of the interesting things that you probably might not have heard. So FTX has a new CEO. He's called John Ray III. He's American, if you didn't believe that from the name. Ironically, he was the administrator who sorted out the Enron fallout. So the irony there is painful. His opening quote was, "Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as has occurred here." So that was interesting. A few other things I've seen. So SBF, as we'll call him, Sam Bankman-Fried, he said he has endeavoured to get customer funds back. Unfortunately, he's been fired from his role as CEO of FTX, and the administrator are keen to remind you that he has absolutely no say in the matter. Hilariously, they've reported an $8 billion hole in their Excel balance sheet. Quite how Mr. Bankman-Fried thinks he's going to raise $8 billion, in which nearly all of it is going to satisfy malpractice, is beyond me. But he thinks it's really, really funny. I think it'll be really, really funny when he's in jail. Look, here's some of the crazy shit they got up to. This is courtesy of Grit Capital. Genevieve is a fantastic writer. I'd urge you to sign up. But here's the top 10 things that we have spotted. So, debtors did not have the type of disbursement controls that I believe are appropriate for a business enterprise. For example, employees of the FTX group submitted payment requests via chat platforms, where a disparate group of supervisors approved disbursements by responding with a personalised emoji. So there was related party loans receivable of $4.1 billion at Alameda Research Consolidated, consisted primarily of a loan by Euclid Way Limited to Paperbird Inc., a debtor of $2.3 billion, and 3 loans by Alameda Research Limited, one to Mr. Bankman-Fried of $1 billion, one to Mr. Singh of $543 million, and one to Ryan Salami, an interesting name, of $55 million. You know what they did with this money? They bought houses with it. Very few records were kept. Most decisions in the company were made over chat, and unfortunately for the administrator, the message is auto-deleted after 30 days, so they have no way of tracing any company decision. So FTX was a company valued at $32 billion. It never had a board meeting, and neither did any of its subsidiaries, and there are no records of them happening at any of the 160 companies that he founded. Number 5, FTX had no cash management system, so management had zero idea how much cash was on hand at any given time, or even where they were keeping their cash. So the administrator said, the FTX group did not maintain centralised control of its cash. Cash management procedural failures included the absence of an accurate list of bank accounts and account signatories, as well as insufficient attention to the creditworthiness of its banking partners. But even worse than this, FTX weren't keeping proper records of who was employed. The administrator said the FTX approach to human resources combined employees of various entities and contractors with unclear records and lines of responsibility. At this time, the debtors have been unable to prepare a complete list of who actually worked for the FTX group as of the petition date, or what the terms of their employment were. Repeated attempts to locate certain presumed employees to confirm their status have been unsuccessful. So we've already gone over this one. This is corporate funds were used to buy real estate. They basically bought a ton of real estate in the Bahamas with loans from the company, which ended up being clients' funds. So number 8, crypto deposited by customers wasn't even recorded on the balance sheet. Presumably, all crypto assets just went into one central slush fund and were used for whatever. This is the administrator. So the filing makes clear that Sam Bankman-Fried does not speak for the company, and his erratic and misleading public statement should be disregarded. Sorry. Here he says, finally and critically, the debtors have made clear to employees and the public that Mr. Bankman-Fried is not employed by the debtors and does not speak for them. Mr. Bankman-Fried, currently residing in the Bahamas, continues to make erratic and misleading public statements. Mr. Bankman-Fried, whose connections and financial holdings in the Bahamas remain unclear to me, recently stated to a reporter on Twitter, regulators, they make everything worse, and suggested the next step for him was to win a jurisdictional battle versus the Delaware County Court. So that's the fallout of the FTX things. They were the interesting bits I found in the report. Obviously, very sorry for anybody who's lost money in this. I don't think there was any way of seeing this happening. But no. I wanted to have a broader discussion about the YouTube creators that publish this. So Millennial Money have deleted their channel. They couldn't take the flack anymore. They apparently were taking up to £50,000 a video for promoting FTX. Joseph Carlson was another. He said he only published he was only pushing the stock version of it. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. I watched a JKR video where he called them all out on it, basically saying that, this was their fault. Do you think it's their fault?
No, to a point. You're right. I don't think they could see it coming. But I do think that I have a very strict rule that if I'm going to advertise anything, which I barely do, I have to be using the product, right? That's the thing, is like I would only say something is good or useful if I was actually using it. And these people clearly aren't using it, right? They clearly aren't. I worry about eToro because I know I've pushed a lot of people onto eToro, or at least I've mentioned eToro at all. And I'm still buying crypto on eToro every single month. I put like 100 quid in and buying Ethereum. So I haven't strayed from that in any way, but they spent a lot of money on advertising to people and things like that. So I wonder if, that's a private company as well in Israel. I wonder what its debt profile is like. I don't know if that thing is doing well or not, and that does worry me as well. So I've got very personal feelings on that as well. But if you're not fucking using it, if you don't know how it works, then why the fuck, why are you advertising it? And that's what I don't get. That Andre Jick was brilliant a few years ago. He had real videos that were really important, and they taught you a lot about the basics of personal finance. But now it's just a crypto shilling sort of channel, and you just kind of like, I haven't watched it in ages, and you're just looking at adverts basically, and you can't tell. That's the weird thing, is you can't tell that this entire video that he's putting out is an advert for a crypto company until right at the end, when you realize, I've just spent 12 minutes on someone trying to tell me that they're not going to buy the coin themselves, but they think it's pretty good and it could 100x. And there's millions of videos out there like that. And I feel like Joseph Carson's been caught a bit short there. He did say that he thought that company was very solid and it was one of the more solid ones out there. He didn't know that, obviously, and that's the problem, right? He said something there that he didn't know for sure, and that's quite interesting to me as well. You got to be careful. And there's a lot of people banking on that. I don't know how many people have lost money. I don't know how much money Joseph Carson's made from that, but it must be fucking loads.
I don't quite have Paul's moral compass here. I absolutely would advertise a product I didn't use, but I do have his similar thought of thinking that if I was going to advertise it, I would have to think it could be genuinely useful to somebody. That person may not be me necessarily. And for $50,000, I'll write you a rap that will last the whole of the next podcast. It does strike me as kind of appropriate that F regulators, they make everything worse. That's kind of, as far as I can tell, the slogan for crypto generally across the board, or from what I perceive of this sort of thing. I'm not a massive fan of the crypto space. I don't know vast amounts of it. I think I'm a little bit wary of the people who are kind of, as always, I'm more wary of the people who are in my camp but overconfident than the people who are on the other side of these things. So I'm not about to argue that crypto doesn't have a use or anything like that. Buffett, Charlie Munger have both thought this was a kind of easy place for fraud to kind of manifest itself.
Great for kidnappers.
Great for kidnappers. Okay, it's clearly the case that fraud is highly possible through here, or at least has been until very recently. I wouldn't get too carried away with my own greatness if I was Buffett and Munger here. Wells Fargo is a place that's seen an awful lot of fraud, but I don't think that means we should close down banks because they're all great for defrauding people particularly. I was trying to think about Steve's thought of whether I thought this was more obvious than, say, I was actually thinking in my head of Wirecard as a good example of a fraud that I didn't see coming, and to be honest, don't really hold anyone on the kind of investor side, the kind of retail investor side anyway, responsible for not seeing coming. To be honest, I don't know how you would know that kind of thing. That's why accounts are audited and why you have people do it. And I genuinely am not too sure, to be honest. You'd need to think a lot more about crypto than I did to think this was an obvious fraud. So I'm kind of indifferent as to whether I think this was particularly obvious.
I think the sort of parting comment for me on it would be, well, just a couple of things really. They have over 1 million customers, Paul, so they've got 1 million people at the moment trying to get it. It's also a class action against Larry David, Steph Curry, and Giselle and her husband, whose name escapes me.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, of course it is. Yeah.
They're getting a divorce, by the way.
Oh, well, they all have a class action against them to go. So there'll be a few more days in court for them. But yeah, so my parting thought on this is essentially that I don't think anybody could have seen this coming. Bankman-Fried had just been on the front cover of Forbes as the coolest man in the world or something. Coolest billionaire, the most altruistic billionaire ever and what have you. And I mean, you weren't to know he was running this incestuous company where the only reason he was hiring CEOs for some of them was that he was dating them or trying to date them. You just weren't going to know that was going to happen. The media reports around, and the media reports continue to be really bad. I don't know if you saw the New York Times. It was like this little fluff piece they've put out where they asked him if he was getting enough sleep. Like, he's just taken billions of pounds away from people, and the New York Times are worried about this guy's sleep. Like, I'd be worried about, like, you know, not getting a crossbow bolt in the back of my head. But yeah, I just think there's no way you could have seen this coming. It's a private company. You had no access to their finances. On the face of it, it looked like this strong company was buying up all of these failing crypto companies. But the truth of it was, I mean, in hindsight, you've got to think to yourself, well, where did all this money come from? I mean, I don't know whether you saw the reports from Sequoia Capital. They've taken their report down of him now, where he was talking about buying bananas on FTX.com, and they thought he was the greatest founder ever. And they found out at the end of the interview he'd been sat playing League of Legends and not actually like looking at his presentations as he made it to them. And they loved him so much, Steve. You'll love this. They did a meme round for him. 420.69 million from 669 investors, I think it was. It's just forget about this free capital environment that we've just been in. If you needed to explain anything to anybody about this sort of period of zero interest rates, quantitative easing, too much money in the market, you would just say, just read this. Just read this little thing. But unfortunately, Sequoia have deleted it, as they have deleted the amount that investment was worth from their balance sheet.
I am going to try to bring some balance here. This is going to be a very tough one because I know we've been extremely negative and we've said everything. But I'm going to try and come up with something to try and. Do
you want me to pause it and we'll start it when you've thought of it?
No, this will be it. So basically, what if this is a bit of a martyrdom? What if this is something, and this is so stupid, I'm not even saying it, but it does come out with a bit of a point about crypto at the end of it, which I am obviously very positive on in the long term. But what if the thing that's been standing in the way of crypto becoming more mainstream, more centralized and more stable is the fact that exchanges are completely unregulated. And we have been saying, in the crypto world, they have been saying that there needs to be some catastrophic event that brings regulation into crypto, which gives cryptocurrencies more legitimacy. Now, what if this person is so freaking crazy that he's developed an exchange and then decided that he wants to be the person that gives it the legitimacy it needs, even by goading regulators here, by saying F regulators, and just, really trying to push home the fact that this is a big problem. Sort of like, anti-hackers or white hackers or whatever they call them. So I'm going to put out something like that, and that is certainly my last resort. That if I was SBF and I was facing this massive hole, that is the PR that I'd be doing right now. I'd be saying, look, I did this on purpose to give crypto more legitimacy. Whether I've done that or not, I don't know, but certainly regulation is coming to cryptocurrencies, which is going to give it more legitimacy, and that would be the main positive point that could come out of the end of this.
Or it gets banned.
I don't think they do. I don't think they do ban it. I don't think they can, if that makes any sense.
No, the dude from El Salvador is he's going to presumably carry it to like Victory Now or something, who was busy laughing at the UK not so long ago when we were getting grossly hammered by the most recent budget, I think, that we had. They're big crypto fans in El Salvador, I think. Such is my lack of knowledge of the crypto space, by the way, that I can't work out, and I genuinely don't know, because people seem to tell me different things, I think. I've tried to find this out, but people seem to disagree, whether crypto becoming regulated would defeat the point of crypto one way or another.
By the way, actually, I bought my first ever thing with crypto the other day, just very, very interested. I visited a non-country the other day, and they usually use the Turkish lira as their currency, but they also accept Bitcoin everywhere. And so, just for fun, I bought a coffee with a little bit of Bitcoin just for the funsies of it. But
that costing 4 Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, it really didn't cost much. It was like 0. I mean, to be fair, my wallet just does it in cash anyway, so it tells you the exact dollars and cents that it comes out, so it just minuses the amount of Bitcoin, which reduces the whole point of Bitcoin, right? That's like, it undermines the whole system. But something I did the other day, which was quite interesting, and it was not a pleasant experience, I'll tell you that.
I was going to say, did it feel like the future?
No, it did not. It took about 10 minutes for them to fucking regulate it, and it was the dumbest thing. But over there, you can buy cars, you can buy all sorts of different things. I think I put on the Instagram that there was a sign saying, buy this with Bitcoin, and there were some genuine Cartier sunglasses that you could buy with Bitcoin. And I was kind of like, all right, this is the future. But also, I realize I'm in a war-torn country.
Did it have like a digital price thing that kept going, like 3 Bitcoin, 4 Bitcoin, 5 Bitcoin, 6 Bitcoin, 7 Bitcoin, 8 Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin?
No, that's the way to suck you in. And that'd be so funny if it had like a ticker that on the coffees, it just went up and down, up and down, up and down all the time, like petrol prices. Because I've seen the petrol prices change over here, up and down constantly as well, which is quite odd.
That'd be fun.
It's all to do with
just being a massive queue waiting for someone to check out while they're like, hang on, I'm not paying yet. I'm waiting. Wait. Give me 5 minutes on this and it'll be worth half as much.
Certainly not at this point, not the future, which is why I don't buy Bitcoin anymore, to be honest with you, because I don't feel it's the correct way it's going. But interesting.